but I'm also giving myself some resources of how I can behave in a way that I'm not getting overly emotional, but I can say, oh, time out. I go, well, hold back, and okay, we're done. Like they're my three. It's like you got three strikes, you're out, right? 3 strikes, we're done. I'm out the door. Hey guys, Matt Tait here from Fork in the Road once again with another Transforming Yourself exercise. Old friend, old mate, Steve Andreas. As we say, he is a fantastic, or was a fantastic person in the NLP space. Now passed on, but he's just left a legacy. He's left a legacy of an incredible series of books and seminars and recordings online for understanding yourself as a human being. And so the whole point of this is to continue on going through the exercises in this book, Transforming Yourself by Steve Andreas, which is effectively a written transcript of his seminar workshop where people get to explore the self-concept model. And the whole point of this, why am I making these videos? Because I want to bring out the exercises that are inside the book. Bring out ways of exploring your inner world so that you can handle the outer world so much better. So we can have different meanings on what things are all about. So we can overcome anxiety, overcome depression, overcome tension in our body. You know, if you're going through stress, it's because of your perception of what's going on. So continuing on with the series, now we're jumping into the next exercise in boundaries and boundary settings. So if you recall in the first session, we talked about exploring boundaries, and I explored my external space to say, all right, here's my safety zone with allowing someone into my personal space. You know, that 3 foot, 2 foot, or 1 meter space around you, which we all have. If someone enters that space uninvited, it's a natural kind of a protection barrier we all have. Well, sometimes they can be too strong and sometimes they can be too weak because we still want connection and we still want to have opportunity, but we don't want to allow bad people in, right? So there's a balancing act we have to learn. And once you become aware of your boundaries, you get this awareness, then you can do something about it. That's the amazing thing about the self-concept model. You start to become aware and you can make changes to get a better result in the future. I mean, that's what we want. We want that better future over there somewhere, right? That's what we want. So with that in mind, and we've got the past, we've got the future, we're now going to go into our boundaries. Here we go. So exercise number 13.2, you can see I've got it there in the book, opened up. External boundaries, experimenting with changes. And take 5 minutes to experiment with changing your boundaries, particularly situations that are difficult to you or in which you would like to have additional choices. And how could you change your boundaries in ways that make those situations easier to deal with resourcefully? Okay, so what is a situation that is difficult for you, and what is a situation where you don't have the boundary and you want additional resources? You want to make it easier. So keep in mind the importance of preserving the positive protective function of the boundary while experimenting with changing the ways that you represent a boundary, with a view towards improving how it works and removing any undesirable consequences or side effects. Right, so we're starting to head into a very interesting little thing here where we're going to look at those boundaries, and let's have a think about boundaries in your personal space perhaps, or maybe it's boundaries in your time, boundaries in your energy, boundaries in you've got to decide what's a boundary that's important to you first, right? It might be a boundary in your relationship, it might be a boundary in friendships, right? That can be a big one. It might be a boundary in, are you getting your needs met in those things? But also, are you providing value to them? It's a balancing act, right? It's not all about you, but it's about being allowed to experience your own emotions and feelings, but still being able to interact with the world. So it's a real push-pull. It's the old ego versus soul. It's the taking versus the giving. We need a little bit of both to be nurtured and nurturing. Okay, so what would be a boundary for you? So as I explore my world, let's see, what's a boundary? I mean, I have my personal space boundary, and I thought that worked quite well. It's not something that I'm looking to push away or change too much. But what's something that I would like more of? Let's think about that. Going back to the thing, we've got additional choices. So sometimes we can limit ourselves in our choices. So where's a boundary which is limiting to you? When you travel, do you have a different set of boundaries than when you're at home? Because you're in an unfamiliar environment. If you travel to a third world country, I noticed my boundaries were very different than if I'm walking around the local markets like we did just before. We went to a local market here in Surfers Paradise in Queensland, and it was a local market just selling food and vegetables and people doing takeaway food, coffees, and acai bowls and that sort of thing. And so we walked around the market. It was a very nice start to our Sunday morning. And so the boundaries that I had there, I mean, at the end of the day, no one entered my personal space as far as that boundary. And so if you change those boundaries, I think in that situation I was very happy with my boundaries. There was no negative consequences to that. But if you think about, all right, imagine that was a networking event. That's a very different situation. And let's put ourselves in that situation. A networking event where you go along and you want to explore your boundaries for additional resources, where you can actually have additional choices, where you can allow people in. And that's, I think, in the situation of, let's say, a networking event. A networking event you go to and you're going around to meet people. And as you go around to meet people, you walk around, and if you set the boundary of, I'm going to get something from them, if you've got that energy, they're going to pick that up, they're going to push you away because you're going to get them, right? But if you go into that situation and you have a boundary where, well, not a boundary, but you say, I'm going to give something to them, their boundary of looking out for people who are coming to get me is going to change. Your boundary of he's going to come and get me is actually going to change because you'll pick up their giving, and all of a sudden the boundary will come down. So that's a really useful boundary when that person, when you're thinking about other people and you're thinking about putting boundaries up for people who are coming to get you. Oh, that's a good one. So I've had situations like that, I've just realized, where someone was trying to get me, right, into buying stuff. And I had a boundary condition instantly that comes to mind. Ooh, there's a good one. And so let's think about how I could be more resourceful instead of just putting up the boundary. Though, hey, some boundaries are perfectly fine. And I think for me, it's just being able to express myself in that situation without necessarily firing off all the emotion that's going on inside me, right? So someone's trying to get you in a sales situation and you want to set a boundary. Well, firstly, there's a boundary inside yourself that already exists, and I'll have this, just realize this is a different boundary I'm just exploring here. This is a boundary connected to people trying to get you. And I think it's a boundary where perhaps I'm realizing to be more resourceful in that boundary, instead of just energetically pushing them back, we can actually just say out loud how we're feeling. And it might be something where it's not necessarily, like, we get to express ourselves. We don't have to dump on the person, but we can let them know somehow. So if you come up with a strategy that doesn't look like you're losing your stuff, like you're not getting emotional, but you can sort of set the boundary, make it really clear, that's a good thing. because they get some feedback from you. Some people don't want any feedback, right? They just want to do their thing. But to interact in the universe, we need to have feedback from other people, right? They've got boundaries, we've got boundaries. So we've got to just try and figure out that feedback so we can either connect or not, right? But make it really clear what we want in the interaction. This is really good. This is really valuable. This will help you to move forward. Awareness of the boundary, and then playing with the boundary to be more resourceful and be proud of yourself in the interaction so that you've expressed yourself, they know where you're at, and then you can move forward or not. It'll be really clear. And we don't waste our energy with each other then. Or we do because it's worth it. Or we explore and reconnect. Because if someone's trying to get you, you've not connected. You've disconnected. But if someone's trying to give to you, well, that's very connecting. It's a balancing act in everything. So let's have a look as we explore external boundaries, experimenting with changes, right? So I've just discovered this external boundary of people trying to get me, right? And when I'm doing my business of coaching, I don't want to get anyone. I want them to be attracted to what I've got so I can help them, yeah? So that is really powerful. Now, let's have a look. So changing your boundaries, particularly in situations that are difficult for you. Yeah, that was a tricky situation with the person the other day who was trying to get me. So I was like, okay, let me just explore this new boundary I've just discovered on people trying to get me. The boundary is actually quite a long way out. And I think what happens is they come in and they get inside my boundary. And it's like a fence in the distance, but somehow they've traversed the fence. And the fence was too low, so there was no barrier to entry. And so I'm thinking that fence it's like 100 yards away. And all of a sudden, once they enter my world, they're inside my boundary and I'm available to be got. Because I'm a very friendly person. So then, okay, so that's the situation. Let's establish a boundary very similar. I'm going to use the self-concept I had for my personal space boundary as an idea. And that was like rings of Saturn, right? There's 3 of them. I'm going to have 3 different levels when someone enters my world, which will trigger off a response to let them know, hey, you're going a bit too far here. Let's talk about what I want, Now, this is a situation where I was caught on the hop, a situation where I was being sold to, and I was being very polite. So a little bit of feedback to them would have been really useful. And the closer they get into my rings of Saturn of my different levels, the energy rises in, hey, do something about it, Matt, right? And do something about it can be simple as stop, too much. Too much. I'm not hearing a word you're saying now because you're coming on too strong. You're not asking me what I want here, right? Now, I wasn't aware that I needed them to be aware of what I wanted until after the interaction. So you're not asking me what I want. And I don't want those things you're talking about. So I'm losing my mojo here. But I didn't have the presence of mind at the time to put that barrier up. It was like, what's going on here? So when someone's coming at you like that, and that presence of mind is not there, now if you set the boundary, there'll be more warning systems before you then have to stop like that. Stop what you're saying. I need, time out. Maybe it's like that. Maybe it's time out, time out. Time out. I can't even do it. Like that. Time out. I just go like that. I don't even have to say anything. Just time out. Time out, time out. Just whoa. Hold the phone. A physical thing. Don't even have to say anything. Time out, man. You are freaking me out here. Just time out. I don't want to hear any more. I need a break. That's what they do in basketball. I need a break. So the thing I'm exploring is, all right, I'm going to set up a new system inside myself. The boundary was a fence. Way over there. 100 meters away. They jump the fence and they get in my face. I've got no more boundaries. I've got no more barriers. I've got nothing where I can at least say something, right? So I'm going to set up a new system. And the system is, I'm going to have my first one was green. Green was what I had, and I'm using my personal boundary to help me with my being got boundary, right? And the first one is going to be a green one, which is about, I'm going to call it arm's length. Now with my personal space, the green one was here, but this one I think arm's length is still appropriate, yeah? So I'm going to have a green boundary. It's like a green halo around me, right? For anyone who enters the I'm going to get your space. Beyond the green halo, like that's pretty close. You're getting close to my personal space, but I won't be under threat. I'll have an awareness about it. And that green halo is like they're getting closer to the inner circle now. The inner circle is my personal space, right? But this is the edge of my personal space, and it's the edge of the green halo. The second layer is going to be a meter beyond that, maybe 2 meters beyond that. And that's a blue halo, but it's like a big dome around me. But it's energetic. You can walk through it, but I know when you've walked through that energetic boundary. So I'm just watching a boat go past me here, and it's a jet ski actually. And so the blue halo is about 2 meters out beyond my arms. Okay, that's about 10 feet, I think, in the old scale. No, maybe 8 feet. Something around that. And the yellow barrier, which was not part of my personal space system, that's going to be 5 meters away, right? Metaphorically, in my mind, I'm putting it 5 meters away. And so that's the another yellow dome. So this is a yellow dome. I've got my blue dome, which is 2 meters away, energetic, and then I've got my green halo, right? Which is arm's length out here. Now, these are my 3 layers. Okay, so I'm making this stuff up, right? But this is what I'm producing in my brain. Anyone's coming to get me, they're going to get through the first, and I'll let them through the first, right? Because I want to hear what they got to say. But if they come through the first and at no point do they interact with me and ask me anything, they just barrel through their presentation. Time out. I can't do it with one hand. Time out. Oh, time out. Too much. Let's just stop that conversation because it's too much. I don't want all of that, right? Because I had no boundary beforehand. But now I've got the yellow boundary. Right, they come through there. Between the yellow and the blue, I know that they've entered now, right? Before I didn't even consciously acknowledge they'd entered the dome, entered my space. But now they've entered my space. And a simple question is what is your outcome today? What are you trying to do today? What is it you want in this interaction? What is your outcome here? Like, just have a one-liner like that ready for, well, what's your outcome here today with me? What's your intention? And just stop. And that'll stop them in their tracks, I reckon. But even if it doesn't, they'll say, oh, well, let me tell you I'm going to do this, and I'm going to sell to you. And then they try and get through the second one, right? So the first one, I've done a timeout. That's my first part of the system. Timeout. The second one, I'm going to go stop the interaction right here. I'm now putting a boundary up because at no point are you interacting with me. You're now just vomiting all over me. Stop. And if they enter the third one, I'm going to, okay, interaction over. We're done. You're not getting into my personal space. That is my personal space, and they're trying to get in there. Now, they might not be physically in your space. The person who was selling to me did it across Zoom, right? It was like a Zoom type video chat, and they definitely entered my personal energy space for sure. And it was fascinating that this person entered my world. And I was like, whoa, I've let them in. So what I'm doing now is I'm building a new system of a boundary. It's a warning system, really. But I'm also giving myself some resources of how I can behave in a way that I'm not getting overly emotional, but I can say, oh, time out. I go, well, hold back. And okay, we're done. Like they're my 3. It's like you got three strikes, you're out, right? 3 strikes, we're done. I'm out the door. Whereas I allowed this interaction to go on for 40 minutes. Right? And it was too much. And I was peeved off the rest of the day. I remember. And actually, we've spoken about it numerous times ever since, because it was just not a good interaction. And so I needed boundaries. At no point was I asked what I wanted. And so it's like, I want to allow opportunities in, right? Because some things are really good. But in this situation, this is my new, am I being got filter. Now you've got to be careful though, knowing NLP, knowing mindset. If you focus on being got, guess what? It'll expand. You'll get more of people trying to get you. So we're just wanting people to prove themselves as they're coming through the door. And if you've got this little filter set up, that means that at least, okay, is this person genuine? Let them into the next bubble, into the next sphere, the next energetic zone where I allow them through there. And then let that interaction, and okay, I trust them to get through the next level. I want to let people in and have situations, and of course it's going to be context related, but if somebody is getting you on the hop and you're not aware of it, it's not a context, and it's not a networking event per se, but you can energetically bounce them out if it's too much, right? Where you don't waste 40 minutes, you only waste 5 minutes. That's my goal. My goal is to value my time and theirs. If I need something from them and they need something from me, cool, let's interact. This is cool. This is a worthwhile conversation. And so maybe that's the filter. Is this a worthwhile conversation? Feels a lot better. Is this a positive, worthwhile, mutually beneficial conversation? And maybe that's what these barriers are. And so I allow worthwhile conversation 1, yeah, sure. Worthwhile conversation bubble 2, yeah, sure. Worthwhile conversation 3, into the inner circle halo, and now I'm doing business with you, right? But we don't let them in unless it's going to serve both of us, right? So maybe that's what it is. I've just built a new example where I've played around with my boundary. I've built 3 of a halo and 2 bubbles of energy, and I'll let them in with the intention of having a meaningful conversation, with the intention of mutually beneficial, with the intention of positive business relationship. You know, that's the sort of energy we're going in with. So that's pretty cool. So there you go. I've just now created a new boundary that's not about not being got. I've flipped it to the positive, and it's now a boundary of, is this mutually beneficial, this conversation? Is this a valuable conversation for me and them? If not, stop it. And now I think about it, this conversation, I've had many situations where someone talks at me for too long. And I think about my coaching, but even I actually love hearing my clients' stories. There are some people though who go into lots of stories, right? And as a coach, I have to help them get out of their story and into doing some work. And so if I'm saying, all right, is this story beneficial for them and me in this session? Like, is it beneficial for me to help them? Sometimes yes, because the story is revealing beliefs, it's revealing values, it's revealing incredible things, gold nuggets to work on. I let that go, absolutely, just keep talking. But there are some times when someone goes into story after story after story and there's no oxygen left, no time left to do any work on the neurological stuff, to do a timeline, to do a belief change, to do a values lift, to do all of the things around identity and self-concept. How can I help them? The time's run out. You know, like I give people an hour and a half in a session, and if we're now at the 2-hour mark and we haven't done a process, we're pretty much done, right? We're pretty much done. So what I want is to have these layers where I say, all right, is this mutually beneficial, this story? Yes, it is. Keep going. Is it not? Is this now wasting time for them and me? As a coach, my job is to help them through and say, can I stop you there? Time out for a second. Stop you on that story just to make sure we get some work done today. I've got some great content here, and there's 3 things I've picked up that we could work on. Would you be okay with me sharing those 3 things I've seen in the notes here? Because otherwise we'll talk about stories and keep on going, and I've got a lot of content from you now. So let's get to those things you wanted to work on. You know, that kind of a thing. And it's not being rude, right? And you can see I've now built a new way to break someone's story by simply setting, is it worthwhile boundary for both of us? So that's really fascinating. So external boundaries I've just experimented, and it was a 15-minute exercise that Steve Andreas goes through. That's really cool. So I'm really excited by that. I'm looking forward to trying this new boundary with my clients in my next session. I'm looking forward to this boundary. If someone ever tries to sell something to me, I'm going to say, oh, time out. Hold off. Okay, we're done. That's my 3 warning system. I'm not going to blow them off, but I'm going to let them know. They need to have some feedback. I mean, I'm in sales too. I've got my coaching business. I want feedback to know that the client is all in. I don't want to have them think that I've got them. I want them to know I'm all in, because you're going to serve me. I'm going to have something resolved here that's valuable, and I can see you're the guy to help me. We're in rapport. It's all coming together, right? That's what I want. I don't want, here you go, here's the package, oh, where you go. No. I want you knowing that this is for you. I want your internal boundaries met, because I've got them too. So now I'm aware of mine, I'm also going to be aware of other people's. So it's really cool. So there you go. That is the second exercise. I've been exploring my internal boundaries, discovering some new ones along the way. And as I discover my external and my internal boundaries, it's actually an external boundary of getting value out of the conversation. Is this conversation worthwhile? And I've got 3 rings to my boundary now. I've got my outside, the outer yellow dome, the inner blue dome, and then the closer halo of green. If they get through those 3 barriers, we're probably doing business together. If they don't, I've got my, time out, I've got my whoa, and then, okay, we're done. If I find it's not working, and that could be someone selling to me, or it could be a situation where I've got to help someone through. It'll be different in a coaching session. I won't say, okay, we're done, because that's not how I work. But with someone who I don't know and I don't have a relationship, or it can be, okay, we're done, because I don't know you, I don't know who you are, and that's the context where that barrier starts to change. Fascinating stuff. I hope you got something out of my little exercise I did on myself, and I'm now looking forward to the next time I have to implement my little barrier. Not barrier, I'm going to call it my warning system. No, even better, because that implies threat. I'm going to call it my awareness filter. There you go. My awareness filter of value. Is this valuable? Yes or no? No? Okay. Communicate. That's the system. Yes, into the next layer. Is this really valuable? Yes or no? Yes, no. Yes. Keep going. No, okay. Oh, let's hold back. And just communicating, right? That's the thing that I'm now introducing, that little communication, even just like this. They won't talk. Do a physical, like this. Stop! Because some people don't give oxygen to let you stop. So let's play with those filters, and it's going to be really useful for the future. Okay, stop talking, Matt. Let's jump into the next exercise and have a look at how else we can play with our internal, external boundaries.